Da, 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 da. Can you all see the stream? Hello, hello.
Hi. Say hi to Mr. Roddenberry.
He's in the podcast with Chris Hardwick.
Indeed he is.
And then downstairs we've got rehearsal with Justin Willman and his sleight of mouth.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
very, very cool sleight of mouth.
And
great show.
Kevin Smith coming in. So Dennis is coming down.
Oh good, Dennis Pizzara.
That'll be good.
Since iPads don't have a USB port, how do you get...
You're just going to have Justin, as you can see down at the bottom of the screen.
Wow, we actually have the lower third correctly put out there.
Yeah, it's a blue
Cliff
day.
And Justin.
And let's go over here. And that's our friend Frank.
Our friend Frankie.
Frankie Chan. He runs iHeart Comics. No, we're just kidding. We love you, Frank.
I love Frankie.
Now, you don't have any sound.
This thing is very heavy, by the way.
You're not seeing any sound? You're not hearing any sound?
Are you talking about synesthesia, where you actually hear
It looks like
sights and you see sounds?
There
as
it
if your
goes.
senses were switched. Hello, there
I
it
hear
goes.
Cliff and Justin talking. Okay, looks like we're good to go. So welcome. This is Torn Tuesday. It's Tuesday every Tuesday here at theonering.net/live. We're streaming live on YouTube. We're part of the beta test on YouTube streaming. We're in HD and we're live at Meltdown Comics, where it's a completely busy day right now.
You have no idea.
We're in.
He's going to tell you.
We're in the little treehouse of terror.
Treehouse of Horrors, yes.
Here at the Meltdown in the brick cave. There's some chains and some eagles and My Little Pony. You won't believe.
No, actually, he's right. All these things are all around us. It is kind of true.
And it's probably all worth like fortune.
This is the detritus and the debris up in this space up in the loft above. The detritus of Meltdown Comics, which is
a history of nerd comic book store and collectibles.
Do you know that Meltdown Comics used to be only that little storefront across the street, right next to Chibo, right over there?
Yeah.
Chibo, which has expanded into the space that Meltdown used to occupy.
Now it's 10,000 square feet.
10,000 square feet.
So there's plenty of room.
Everything.
In the room across the hall, we have Chris Hardwick and his friends at the Nerdist podcast interviewing Rod Roddenberry.
Yes.
Because of the sad news today.
The very, very sad news. I wish that we had better news, but we mark the passing of one of the legends, one of the great creative legends of motion picture history, and certainly one of the greatest contributors to fantasy film storytelling that directly inspired Peter Jackson to do what he does as a professional. Ray Harryhausen, at the age of 92, has passed away. We were informed earlier today. It is a very sad day because Ray Harryhausen, as you know, is responsible for the very first wave of non-digital, non-electronic, all manual puppets and stop-motion animation creature effects. All the creature effects and visual effects.
King Kong.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes.
Put him on the map, and you all the way up to the 80s with Jason and the Argonauts.
And Clash of the Titans. And in between that, there was a wave of 60s and 70s films where he did Sinbad movies.
And we wouldn't have Peter Jackson doing Lord of the Rings if not for...
It was already said online today that Peter Jackson would have ended up shearing sheep on a farm down on the North Island if it hadn't been for Ray Harryhausen igniting his imagination with his stop-motion creatures and animations that were part of Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. And you know what? The first movie that I ever saw when I was a lad, unchaperoned, when my mom permitted my older brother to go with me into a theater all by ourselves, we saw the 7th voyage of Sinbad. And seeing those skeletons come to life and come out of the fire and have that great sword fight, they picked up their shields and they picked up their swords and had that unbelievable sword fight with Sinbad. The Cyclops, this unbelievable, ghastly creature that actually ate people on screen. You never knew that a little animatronic puppet that somebody was doing stop-motion movements with 24 frames per second, you never knew that something like that could come to life in a live-action film. as a little boy, imagine the 7-year-old sponge of my brain at that ripe age of 7.
So that was the first movie that you were able to see on your own?
It was the very first movie I ever saw on my own, and I can tell you that my deep and abiding love of animation, mythology, and fantasy all came from that landmark moment when I saw Ray Harryhausen's effects. Those unearthly images of those skeletons coming to life. I've never seen anything like it before or since. He was a genius, and he will be missed. For you, Ray Harryhausen, we do miss you indeed, sir.
Indeed.
And I hope that you're up there now, making magic happen in that next destiny, wherever you are going.
You know what? I'm going to be looking for more cloud formations in the sky that look like things now.
Yeah.
You know, the first time I was, my parents let me watch a movie by myself. Me and my friends snuck into a rated R. Mm-hmm. But obviously, you were more respectful of your parents' rules. But you know, Peter Jackson.
I wanted to see it. I didn't want to see some R-rated movie. I wanted to see the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. More than anything.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing with success.
Amazing.
Whether you're successful at work, no matter what profession, or in Hollywood, like once you have a moderate amount of success, once you have a huge amount of success, like Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings, they say Hollywood says, "What do you want to do? What's your dream project? I'm going to give you keys to the kingdom, whatever budget you want, whatever story you want. You tell us what you want to do." Peter Jackson was one of the privileged few, you can count them probably on 2 hands, that have had that opportunity. And Peter Jackson says, my dream project, the thing that I want to do more than anything else, the movie that inspired him to get into filmmaking and to get into creature effects, was Harryhausen's King Kong.
Yes.
And he didn't.
Same goes for Richard Taylor, who formed the effects company Weta with Peter.
With Peter.
Their friendship is built around Ray Harryhausen.
And you notice in every interview, Peter Jackson talks about King Kong. He doesn't talk about the actors in the movie. And he doesn't talk about the director of the movie or the producer of the movie. He doesn't even talk about
Fay Ray. He doesn't talk about
he says
Harryhausen's
why
work.
did he choose to do King Kong after Lord of the Rings when he could have done anything in the whole world? He chose King Kong because Ray Harryhausen.
Didn't Harryhausen work on the crew? Willis O'Brien did according to Pete Northrunner, Willis O'Brien was directly involved.
Let's see that.
As one of the artistic creators.
Okay, you guys look that up and see. But the point is that Harryhausen was a legend. He lived in London. He died in London.
Yes.
He got to do what he wants. And I think... I want to say that they approached him for Jurassic Park when they were still looking at Phil Tippett's dinosaurs in stop motion, but I think he was kind of retired by then.
Indeed.
Well, but so that's the crazy news. You know what else is going on tonight is downstairs. You might hear the band rehearsing and stuff like that. We've got Cupcake Wars host of the new Win, Lose, or Draw, Justin Willman. He does a show here every month called Sleight of Mouth. He's actually quite an accomplished magician.
Yes. I've seen him perform at the Magic Castle before.
You have to be really good to go to the Magic Castle, and this guy has.
You have to be really good to work there too.
Yes, and so he's got it's open to the public. I mean, I think there's a few tickets still available here at Meltdown. But his special guest, of course, is Kevin Smith. This week, and
very big.
And here's the big circle. Kevin Smith was instrumental in the success of our friend Dennis's fan documentary, Starwoids, which directly inspired. I think you tell me. Did Starwoids inspire you guys to start working on ringers and say, hey, whatever? Star Wars fans have Starwoids. Star Trek fans have Trekkies.
Yes.
We got to do our own about Lord of the Rings fans.
The existence of Starwoids and Trekkies at the same time was one of the great moments for Carlene Cordova and myself. She was the director and my co-writing partner. And we decided to put ringers on full overdrive. Instead of just doing a 20-minute piece that we thought would be a behind-the-scenes piece on some Lord of the Rings DVD, we decided to go to a full feature-length documentary discussion, and we hired the nascent talent of Dominic Monaghan to be our narrator for our film. And I heard a rumor he was wandering through Meltdown today.
Yes. I mean, there's just always so much going on.
Yes, there is. I don't know whether he's really going to walk through here or not, but I tell you what, never a dull moment at Meltdown Comics. Bottom line, if you're in LA, you must come to this grand mecca of all geekdom here on Earth, right here.
So this week we're going to continue our series of profiling the dwarves of The Hobbit. Now,
I've been corrected. Before we go on to our dwarvish conversation, Murtaugh, you're quite correct. It would have been fantastic that PJ so desired to have Fay Ray, who was alive at the time, to still, come in and do a bit on King Kong. Mm-hmm. But it's also true, and I don't mean to overstate things, but it is true that Ray Harryhausen, the influence of Willis O'Brien's work, his model animation, inspired Harryhausen. It's all connected. King Kong and Willis O'Brien connected to inspire Ray Harryhausen, which in turn has inspired the director of Nightmare Before Christmas. You know
what? We saw the original King Kong.
All these things are connected.
Armature. Like when you make the stop motion, you have like a metal skeleton called the armature, and then you put the skin over it, usually clay or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was trying to remember where we had seen the original 1938 King Kong or something 30-something King Kong armature, and we were at King Kong ride opening at Universal Studios.
Yes, we were.
And this old guy comes up and says, "Do you want to see King Kong?" And he brought out the skeleton. And
he had it.
And I thought, wow, talk about, we're at Universal Studios, and there's the original King Kong armature that inspired Harryhausen, that then inspired Peter Jackson to make a movie, and then inspired Universal to make a ride with Peter Jackson.
Funny, huh?
How
it is all super connected. Well, I tell you what, the new Wrath of the Titans that they did, the remake of the Wrath of the Titans, and Clash of the Titans, or those two remakes, don't hold any kind of a possible candle to what Harryhausen did in the 80s with Sir Laurence Olivier, Dame Maggie Smith, and all those great people working on the original Clash of the Titans. And when did that come out? 1982?
Yeah.
82 or something?
It was good.
With Harry Hamlin as Perseus.
Harry Hamlin.
Grand stuff.
Is that Harry Hamlin in Mad Men that I saw?
Really? No, I didn't see him. Anyway, so back to our dwarven conversation.
So this is part 2 of our profile of the Hobbit, the dwarves of the Hobbit. We're going deep into their history. We're getting everybody up to speed on who each of these hobbits are and what
dwarves,
dwarves, and what influence do they have and from the Tolkien all the way to Peter Jackson and the actors that play them.
That's right. Thank you, Second Hutch. Thank you for joining our show, everybody. I want to say hello to everybody, but you're right, Henry Selick. Everybody says Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, and the contract was written by the lawyers to have it say, above the title, Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. But a bit of education for you animation fans out there, Mr. Burton was not the director of Nightmare Before Christmas. It was Henry Selick. Genius.
But
Genius animator.
I went and saw that movie because Tim Burton's name was on it.
It's true.
So it works.
I mean, I love James and the Giant Peach. I'm not so sure about Monkey Bone. That movie was a total mess, but interesting. But Coraline, amazing. Genius. So anyways, here's to Henry Selick being inspired. Here's to all the artists who have lived and died and have inspired us as we are today to work in our chosen fields. I think that's amazing. Speaking
of inspiring, I want to just contrast this current shot of Cliff and I.
Yes.
With our counterparts in The Hobbit.
Oh, yes. Look who we have here today. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about hot dwarves today.
Hot dwarves.
There's some hot dwarves. There's a phenomenon of hot dwarves that we didn't quite expect.
And this is Fili and Kili.
Fili and Kili.
This is Fili.
This is Dean O'Gorman.
Dean O'Gorman, who is most famous playing in Hercules and Xena Warrior Princess.
Yes.
And then this is Kili.
Aidan Turner.
Who's most famous from?
Exactly. Is he? You know what? If I looked at his curriculum vitae, I'm sure that he's been on some other things before The Hobbit. Probably New Zealand television, maybe Shortland Street. Everybody who's worked on Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit has been on Shortland Street at one point or another.
So let's take this back. Fili and Kili are the second dwarves to show up to Bilbo's house.
They are the second to show up.
Is that accurate to the book?
Let's find out. I believe.
Wait, is that true? Yeah, in the movie.
In the movie.
Because Dwalin shows up, which we talked about last week.
Dwalin shows up
and
first.
then Fili and Kili show up. At your service.
Here you go.
And was that line accurate to the book?
Right here, it says, someone at the door. Yes, actually, Dwalin and Balin were there first. Kili and Fili arrived second. That is in Tolkien. It's in the very first chapter, An Unexpected Party.
Right.
Yes. Look at this. It says, Bilbo was going to the door, and he was thinking to himself, oh, Gandalf, for certain, this time, because he thought that Gandalf was the one ringing the bell. But it was not. It was two more dwarves, both with blue hoods, silver belts, and yellow beards, which is why we have this from the 1977 Rankin Bass animated film, The Hobbit. There was Fili and Kili.
That was Fili and Kili in the Rankin Bass?
And
their beards are different.
Their beards are yellow. They're blonde, just like Tolkien described.
But the only difference is that one's got a pointy beard and one's got a separated beard.
Well, actually, one of them is described as having a more prominent nose than the other brother. They were distinguished by Tolkien that one of them had a more pointed nose. But here, let me finish this.
How does it?
They both had blue hoods, they wore silver belts and yellow beards, and each of them carried a bag of tools and a spade. In they hopped as soon as the door began to open. Bilbo was hardly surprised at all. "What can I do for you, my dwarves?" he said. "Kili, at your service," said the one. "And Fili," added the other, and they both swept off their blue hoods and bowed. They were the second to arrive. And then they said, "Oh, it looks like Dwalin and Balin are already here, I see. Let us join the throng." And Bilbo goes, "Throng? Are you kidding me? WTF? There's no throng going on here." But I don't like the sound of that. I really must sit down for a minute and collect my wits and have a drink. He had only just had a sip in the corner while the four dwarves sat around the table and talked about mines and gold and the troubles with goblins and the depredations of dragons and a lot of other things which he did not understand, and he did not want to understand because they sounded much too adventurous, you know. And then his bell rang again, and that means there were more dwarves arriving at the door at that point. But yes, Fili and Kili arrived second. And let's get something across that most people don't know.
Okay.
They're directly related to Thorin. They are his sister's youngest sons. Thorin...
Direct nephews.
Direct nephews, yes. Thorin's sister, her name was Dis. D-I-S. Dis had these two boys, Kili and Fili.
These two boys! I don't know where they come from.
And we actually have to keep in mind that these guys, Kili and Fili, they were, according to the information that we get on, they were the sons of Dis, Thorin's sister, and at the time of the story of The Hobbit, at the time, Fili was 82. 82.
Fili was 82.
80, and Kili was 77 years old at the time.
So is that younger?
Yes.
They were the youngest
They're the youngest.
Say that again, 82 and 77?
Yep. Fili was 82, Kili was 77. However, there's a discrepancy in the appendix. In the book of The Hobbit, Professor Tolkien describes Fili as the youngest one of the company, but if you look at Appendix A in The Lord of the Rings, you'll see that there's a birth year given in Third Age, 2859, and it looks like they're 5 years apart. And even though Fili is described as the youngest,
82.
in the Lord of the Rings appendix, he's 5 years older than Kili. So even Professor Tolkien might have gotten the details a shade off.
This is why I'm telling you a special edition is not out of the question.
We don't know about any special edition.
Because Tolkien was a revisionist on his own work, Peter Jackson is allowed to do that.
He had a vast amount of stuff going on in his mind. He really, really did. Here's what else that we have straight from Tolkien.
Okay.
They had the best eyesight. And that Kili and Fili
like
were
an elf.
Yeah, like elves. That they were, but the lookout man was Balin. Balin's job was to be lookout man, but sometimes Kili and Fili went forward to scout ahead for things.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe that one of them played a fiddle. Yeah, Kili. Kili played a fiddle, a violin. And I wish I had seen some more musical instruments in the movie version.
Do you think he'll play some music? Is he the only dwarf that plays music?
All of the dwarves all have musical instruments, and they do play.
In the book?
Yes.
Do you think they'll show some of that in the movie?
Unknown. You know, the bit with the musical instruments was shown for like a couple of seconds in the unexpected party scene.
Right.
And one of the dwarves is playing a teapot, and you know, one of them is actually playing a real flute. But look, Beaufort's wife was asking if Fili and Kili have a dad. Their father is not mentioned. It's Thorin's sister, but we do not know who Dís was married to. It's very interesting because there's so few conversations about dwarven women. Very rarely in Tolkien's works is there an express statement about a dwarf woman. They're mentioned so rarely that, you know, it leads to that dialogue that Gimli has in the Two Towers Extended Edition, where he says, "It has led to the great misunderstanding that there are no dwarf women." And then Aragorn goes, "It's the beards." You know? You remember that bit? But anyway, it's...
Can you imagine being married to a dwarf? No wonder they don't have a dad that's at home.
We don't know anything specific from the books of Tolkien about Fili and Kili's dad. But we know that their mom was Thorin's direct sister. And,
So do you think... Did Thorin step up to be a father figure in their lives?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm really glad you mentioned that.
Because in many families I've seen, it's if there's no stepfather involved, like it's usually an uncle.
Maybe their father their father was killed in battle somewhere.
Yeah.
But there's some fan art that I found, and this is a particularly good one with Uncle Thorin, where he's relaxed Uncle Thorin before the dragon has arrived and destroyed Erebor, and there's little young Fili and Kili playing with their uncle. This is a nice bit of fan art that I found, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised that your question is quite accurate, that Thorin may have represented somewhat of a fatherly figure to the young lads as they grew up.
Do we have any written proof that they were involved in Thorin was involved in their lives at a young age?
No, that we don't know yet.
The first anything has to do with, like, they were born this year, they're 5 years apart, and then they all show up at Bilbo's house. Mm-hmm. We don't have any stories that allude to their background.
No, there's very little known. In fact, the less that is talked about in the books about the dwarves, it seemed a little bit more convenient for Professor Tolkien as a writer to put these characters in places where he wanted them to go without the whole story being burdened down. When he wanted details about dwarves, he decided to throw all that stuff into the appendices instead of cluttering up the front door of the story. There's not so much great detail about a lot of these dwarves, and it became the task of the filmmakers to give a more of an individualistic approach to how these characters were shown in the films. So, in the film, it does seem, Jenny, you're correct in saying that Peter seems to have thought that Ori, of Nori and Ori, that Adam Brown and his character Ori would be the youngest one.
He looks like it, and he acts like it.
He acts like it, yes. He certainly does act like he's younger and a little bit more
juvenile.
Juvenile and untempered than Kili and Fili. But Ori is shown in a single shot when they're having a conversation with the Great Goblin under the Misty Mountains. And the Goblin is dictating how he wants his prisoners tortured, and he says, "Start with the youngest one." And Peter cuts to a shot of Adam Brown. He does not cut to a shot of Fili and Kili. We see Ori.
So is
when
that
the Great Goblin says, "Start with the youngest." Cut to Ori. It's there. I don't know
so
why, but it's there.
Are fans up in arms over that?
Huh.
Like that's Peter Jackson revising
Always.
for almost no apparent reason other than casting.
I wonder if the point of having the dwarves be that much younger was to appeal in the movie marketplace to a younger audience.
Chronicles does say Thorin is tough on Fili, but overprotective of Kili.
Oh yes, J.W. Braun, our very good friend and Torn staff writer, J.W. Braun, who does the bookshelf section of theonering.net. He does these really cool book reviews of Tolkien books and Tolkien-related books, and especially some of the cool materials that Warner Brothers has been publishing in the wake of the release of An Unexpected Journey. And he has just said that the Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey Chronicles gives a little bit more of a character building insight.
Thorin is tough on Fili. You'd actually just looking at them because they look different in the movie than they do in the book or the animated show, where one is blonde and one is brunette. For some reason,
that's a departure. I thought they would have both been blonde.
Right.
I really thought they would have both been blonde.
I thought that they would have been cast with a well-known actor and doubled him up.
Really?
Or something.
You mean or twin actors?
Twin, yeah.
Really?
Or twin actors, yeah.
They could have done that.
Just like they did in The Social Network. Get a well-known, someone that all the boys and girls love, and double him up. If you had twin Johnny Depps in a movie, I think like they did in the third Pirates of the movie. It was, but
that's true. Bye, Xanaseb. I want to say goodnight to Xanaseb. Thank you to some of our audience members who are here, and some of them are leaving. Bye-bye, Xanaseb. We'll see you next week.
For some reason, I associate the brunette, the dark hair, with a leadership position, and so I consider Kili being the leader. There's always in any family, in any relationship, in anything at work, there's always in
this dynamic, the way that Peter Jackson has them, Dean O'Gorman's blonde Fili is the one who's probably the more take charge type.
And you see that in the forest.
Yes, you do.
Before they bump into the troll. And you're saying Fili is younger?
According to the book, in Chapter 8 of The Hobbit, Fili is described as the youngest one. But if you look in the appendix of The Lord of the Rings, you'll see that Kili is 5 years older, which is the Aidan Turner character. The only problem that I have, I don't mind that one has brunette and one is blonde. I don't mind that Peter Jackson may have switched their 5-year age gap. I don't mind that at all.
Well, it sounds like Tolkien himself switched.
What he did, he may have tried to fix it. He may have tried to fix it, and he may have forgotten what he had done all those years earlier, 17 years earlier, what he had written in The Hobbit. What I do mind is that Aidan Turner doesn't have a proper beard. He just has this Fred Flintstone scruff. He doesn't. I've got more of a beard than Aidan Turner does in the film, and I just have a little chin strap, which is barely enough to keep my chin warm at night. Seriously. A lot of fans have been online ever since the movie started putting out its publicity photos last summer.
Right.
They're like, why the hell does this dwarf not even have a proper beard at all?
I appreciate that. Look, you have to, if you've got
no dwarves ever are beardless. Ever.
If you have all these characters, you're going to have to separate them somehow. And I appreciate that all the dwarves, Beaufort and Kili and Fili and a few others, have they don't have full beards, because I can easily tell them apart. I mean, even I get lost. Like, who is this? Who are we talking about? I mean, they all get lost.
Well, even in revision pieces from fan art, take a look at this really cool thing. The brothers are a lot easier to tell apart because they're blonde and brunette.
Right, and I appreciate that.
I don't mind that one's blonde and one's brunette. I just think that there's a problem that one of them, which is 78 years old, is being presented without a beard. Now, I've found some really great fan art. Now, did you just show that, or is it gone?
I'm trying to show it right now.
Oh, we're trying to connect some... We're connecting our iPad to...
Jiggery pokery.
Yes, there you go. Can you guys see? This is really, really cool.
See,
a little
I
bit of
think that
anime
works.
influence, but anybody who is a non-fan, anybody who's a complete newcomer, who's never read the books, can immediately tell them apart.
Bofer looks Asian here, doesn't he?
He's always looked Asian, but that's because Bofer has that Mongolian hat. But I think these guys are very funny. They play a lot of jokes at Bilbo's expense in the movie. This does not happen in the book, but in the movie, further characterization of Kili and Fili comes from the fact that they're always yanking Bilbo's chain. Right before they start telling that flashback story of the Battle of Azanul Bazaar, it's, you know, Fili and Kili who are feeding a fearful bit of story to Bilbo, making him all anxious and frightened about the prospects of orc packs raiding through the darkness, you know. And Thorin stands up and says, "You think that's funny? You think that's funny? You think it's amusing? People getting attacked in the middle of the night by orcs?" And Thorin's not amused at all. The boys are so chagrined. You can see by the way they respond.
Wait, but who said who
Thorin is
fun?
very much a father figure to them.
Definitely, but who
definitely
who
tell.
was the one that was leading the story? Was that Fili or Kili?
It was Fili. It was Dean O'Gorman who was leading the joke.
So Dean O'Gorman is definitely the kind of leader of those two.
In that sense, yes.
And it is definitely true that Thorin takes on a more restrictive role with Fili.
He does.
Because he is the leader.
There we go. We have an interesting behind-the-scenes shot of Aidan Turner in the makeup chair, getting ready for his scenes on The Hobbit. Let's take a quick look. And I'll get back to my point, and then I'll leave it be. But he had the least amount of time to sit in the makeup chair. Poor John Callan was buried under prosthetics and nose and Klingon foreheads.
A pink T-shirt that he's wearing?
I don't know if it's a pink
A
T-shirt.
pink V-neck? Is that a pink V-neck that Aidan Turner? Who is this guy? Who does this guy think he is?
I don't know. It's salmon. That's actually salmon colored, not pink.
Oh my God.
But there he is, sitting in the makeup chair, and all he has to do is put on a wig and a little bit of powder, and he's out the door. His scruffy beard, there is no beard. There's no prosthetic nose.
They cast him for his looks.
They did. They cast him for his looks, and we have an admission on tape of Philippa Boyens saying, when she was interviewed at Comic-Con last summer, she said, "Peter, I don't care. We're going to have a couple of these dwarves be young and hot. We're just going to have hot dwarves. We're going to have hot dwarves. There's no two ways about it." And Philippa doesn't talk like that. I know she doesn't talk like that, but sorry. But she wanted hot dwarves. Fran Walsh wanted the hot dwarves. And in the end, we created this, the hot dwarf t-shirt and the hot dwarf phenomenon. Can you see it? There you go.
We'll show that in a bit.
We created the hot dwarf t-shirt and that phenomenon.
So
I think one of our staffers started
and
that.
Kili were the hot dwarves.
Yeah. Thorin ended up being a hot dwarf too because Richard Armitage has that.
Just like when it's slow mo, like even
when
as
he's
a
in
straight
slow
guy,
mo,
like, I'm even
yeah. Even you got
he's a hero.
Even you got your panties in a twist when you saw Thorin in
But
slow motion.
I don't get that feeling from. Well, okay, I don't get that feeling at all. But every people that I've talked to said they don't. Fili and Kili aren't really set up in the movie as hot sex symbols. When it was kind of like the marketing is that, like all the publicity shots and a lot of marketing focused on Fili and Kili.
Because
and then in the movie,
I know why. You know why?
No.
You know why so much emphasis on Kili and Fili in the marketing?
No.
Because they changed it from 2 movies to 3 movies. Orlando Bloom did not show up. Therefore, Orlando Bloom and Legolas not being in the first film, they had to have some sex appeal, so they started to burn the embers more brightly for Thorin, Kili, and Fili. They did. That's why. It had to be why. Because Legolas didn't show up in the first film. He's going to be in the second film, as you know, and that was a last-minute editorial change. That is why the marketing was like, let's put more emphasis on these young fellows. And yet, also, I also wanted to mention Galadriel in our chat room said the ponies, the ponies that were being taken by the trolls, Kili and Fili duped Bilbo into going along to investigate so that they wouldn't have to do it themselves. So were they
really
tricksters?
I got the feeling that Fili knew what was over there, and he was testing Bilbo.
Yes, I got that feeling too.
In the movie, that's how it come across. Is that Fili says, "Hey, go check out where the ponies went," and because he knew there were trolls. Is that the case in the book?
No. The case in the book, it doesn't happen like that at all. In the chapter 2, Roast Mutton, the trolls aren't even eating the ponies. They're eating sheep. Sheep that they'd captured from some farmer, right?
Okay.
That's what mutton is. They're eating the sheep.
Okay.
Not the ponies. So, and the trolls actually have some dialogue saying, "This isn't mutton. These are East-tail nags." Remember that?
Right.
This aren't sheep.
This ain't mutton.
No, this ain't mutton. But anyways, in the Roast Mutton chapter, it was Balin who was on the lookout, and they noticed that Gandalf was missing, and then they decide to light a fire, and then Owen and Glowing were quarreling about building a fire, and Bilbo was reflecting on things, and then Balin, yes, the oldest guy in the troop, second to Thorin, but then again in the movie their ages do seem to be different. Balin says, "There's a light over there." It's not Kili and Fili who start that adventure, it's Balin. So that was also changed from the book.
Okay, so why do you think Peter Jackson is setting Kili and Fili up with giving them scenes? That he gave them that scene for the trolls. That he gave them. In the book, do they tell the story on the mountaintop? That Thorin yet? So
no.
So
no. In the book, there's no story about the Battle of Azanul-Bazar. There's no mention of that in the Hobbit.
Okay, so
at all.
So the extent of
that flashback is a whole.
The extent of Fili and Kili in the book is much less.
Yes. Yeah. In the book, there's
like they're introduced at the dinner table, and then
we get a couple of mentions of them a few chapters later when they're portrayed in the book as being the most cheerful. They have the best spirits about their work and what they're doing. And after they ride through the barrels, and they ride on those barrels, and that get stuck in the river going down, they're the ones who are the only two characters who come out of the barrels smiling and glad to, the rest of them are all very grumpy, very grumpy.
So one of the things that Peter Jackson has always used to justify his changes is that he says every change is meant to bring the spirit of the book, the spirit of the story, and translate the intention, the emotional intention that is in the book to the screen. And you have to make some changes to carry that emotional impact. And it sounds like Tolkien himself was positioned Kili and Fili as the funsters, like you just said, the fun kids of the group, like Merry and Pippin were in Lord of the Rings.
There's an analogy there. I hadn't thought of that until just now, but I think you're onto something. There's a Merry and Pippin analogy,
and there is none of that. I don't get any of that feeling, like from the look. From the looks and the publicity stills and the focus and the more scenes that Fili and Kili have, I'm like, all right, these are guys going to be the fun. These are the guys who be like, hey, Bilbo, go over there.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like the scenes are set up. Oh, let's. Bilbo. All right, let me tell you what happened. Let's scare him. And then you hear that noise over there? Hey, Bilbo, go check that out. Like they're always trying to get one up on Bilbo.
Yeah, they are.
They're trying to scare him, or they're trying to
have a laugh at his expense.
They're trying to I don't get that same honest. Not integrity, but I don't get that same feeling that I got from Merry and Pippin, where we're just in it for the fun. We're just exploding fireworks because it's fun. We're just trying to steal we're just along for the ride for fun, and we're trying to do this and for fun. I don't get that from Fili and Kili, and I'm trying to think of is it Dean and Aiden's performance that I'm not getting that out of, or is it Peter and Fran's writing that is not translating into the Merry and Pippin fun-loving kids of the group? I think I would have loved The Hobbit more if Fili and Kili were the jokesters, were the fun kids that are just along for the ride. They'll help out when they can, but they're always playing pranks. You definitely know Merry and Pippin are always trying to play a prank.
Always.
You know, they're hungry. They want second breakfast. Yes. I don't think he knows about second breakfast. You know,
I wonder. Well, I don't know if there's any failure on the part of the screenwriters. Nobody else of the Dwarven Company has the youthful quality that these two characters do. It's not apparent in any of the other 11 dwarves at all that there's any youthful quality at all. It's there, but it's just not the same as Merry and Pippin. Maybe they felt it wouldn't be a good idea to do a total retread of Merry and Pippin. Maybe that was smart of them to not do a total retread of Merry and Pippin.
I think that's not a smart thing. I think they need to do a retread of Merry and Pippin. I think that we need, if you want to repeat the same success and the same emotional attachment and love for this trilogy that you had with the first, you kind of want to repeat some of the successful parts. And Merry and Pippin were successful. Fili and Kili was set up by Tolkien himself to be the same type of characters as Merry and Pippin.
Tolkien in the books barely gives these characters a little light gloss. As J.W. Braun correctly pointed out in the chat room just now, Tolkien ignores 3/4 of the dwarves for the entirety of the book. There's not much detail to go on. So the filmmakers could go any way they wanted to go with hidden clues, some basic details, and off they went to create these new characters.
I'll bet you. I hope that the extended edition of The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey focuses on much more scenes of Fili and Kili.
You think?
And it wouldn't take much. It would a couple little things of like, hey, let's scare Bilbo with some stories. Yeah. You know, stuff like that. You know, or set this up. Right now, we just get.
Tedarus has a good point. Merry and Pippin can't be copied. That's why the professor himself didn't do it. As a matter of fact, he wrote Fili and Kili before. Now, what else? I think there will be opportunities for individual stuff when they're captured in the next film. Yeah, maybe. Maybe we'll get a lot more characterizations that you're looking for.
But you have a lot of characters doing a lot more things over the next two films.
That's true.
This was I feel like this movie, and of course you have Orlando Bloom coming in, and Lake Town and Bart the Bone. I don't think so. I don't think this is going to happen. I think this movie, An Unexpected Journey, was the one that Fili and Kili were supposed to shine.
Yes.
And they didn't shine enough.
I disagree. I thought they shined enough to the degree that we're doing individual profiles of each character every week. I thought they very much shined.
I feel like we have to do these shows have nothing to do with because they were successfully executed on screen.
Yes,
I think that Dean O'Gorman especially. I think he can be fun. I remember watching Hercules was one of my favorite shows.
Yes, he's very fun.
And then when I was coming of age and watching Xena, that was another one of my favorite shows for many reasons. And
Lucy Lawless in that outfit, for sure, of course.
And Dean O'Gorman is funny. He can be funny. And
I know. I worked with him on the Air New Zealand video. He is funny.
He's funny.
He's funny.
I don't see funny in The Hobbit.
I love it when they start singing. Who starts singing the song? Fili and Kili. Who's playing the jokes on Bilbo? Fili and Kili.
They don't come across as jokes. That's the problem.
It does. He goes to take them their bowls of food, and they're just like, whoa, there's ponies missing. Bilbo, you want to help us take care of this?
You know, the music,
it's great.
The music at those scenes is not, it's...
Thank you, JW.
I feel like a combination. I think overall it's not the character's performance. I think the performance is there, and I hope we see it in the extended edition. But I think the music, the editing, and the writing. I don't think that Fili and Kili. I think based on Tolkien's intention and based on the scenes that they were given in the movie beyond what was in the book, that they are supposed to be the Merry and Pippin of this trilogy, and they're not.
But they're also royalty. They are direct descendants of Durin's line.
It doesn't matter.
Thorin didn't have a wife or any children. Fili, Dean O'Gorman's character, is the next in line to inherit the throne.
They don't even
to be the king under the mountain.
They don't even touch on that
Tolkien
in the
fans
movie.
know.
No, they don't even touch it. It doesn't matter because they don't even touch on that in the movie. So it's irrelevant to this discussion, to the movie discussion. I'm saying that there is just a couple little things you could do to make Fili and Kili be more like Merry and Pippin, which it looks like was the intent. What do you think his intent was with Fili? Do you think that these guys, this was their movie to shine and they didn't shine?
I disagree. I thought they shined quite well. That's why there's such a huge girl following for Fili and Kili.
I think the fangirl following is mostly because of the marketing campaign.
Well, no, I think there's even though there's some great funny bits from John Callan and Adam Brown, and
Fili got recast.
Fili, yes, that's true. Yes.
From who?
Let me see.
When did this happen? Thank you.
No. It's true. Rob Kaczynski was originally cast in the role, but he dropped out, and so Dean O'Gorman took his place.
Who is Rob Kaczynski? Pull him up in a...
Rob Kaczynski. Let's see. Here comes Wikipedia. Thank you for a fast and useful internet connection. Rob Kaczynski is a British stage actor.
I just want to know what he looks like.
He's on EastEnders. What does he look like? I don't know. Is there a picture of him?
No picture.
No, there's no picture of him here. But I bet we'll find pictures of him on his IMDb page.
So again, okay. Do you agree?
There you go.
Okay, yeah. He looks like another Aidan Turner.
He does.
So it wasn't a performance decision. It was probably scheduling.
Yeah, he's been very popular on EastEnders on that show.
He's in Pacific Rim.
He's in Pacific Rim, and he did a voice on Robot Chicken, so he knows our buddy Seth Green.
Everybody else.
Yeah, that's great. So Rob Kaczynski was replaced by young Dean O'Gorman.
So do you agree that the first movie it was the movie that Fili and Kili were supposed to shine?
Say that question one more time.
Was the first movie supposed to be the movie where Fili and Kili supposed to shine?
No. The first movie is the movie where Thorin shines. Thorin is supposed to shine, and shine he does. What happens in
they executed Thorin wonderfully.
Well, what happens at the big climactic battle at the end of the film? Who is Azog after? It's all about Thorin. It's all who does Bilbo suddenly become brave to save? Thorin, whose body is carried by the eagles so majestically with Howard Shore's music, and the camera does this beautiful view of Thorin's body. Nobody else gets as much attention in the first film than Thorin. The reason why? We have to be invested in his family line. We have to be invested in his story.
Absolutely. He's the main character, of course. But
because Legolas does not show up, we get some beautification. Well, I'll call it that.
They shine in the battle of
roadside beautification. That's what I'm going to call it. Roadside beautification.
Look,
Fili and Kili get that focus because Legolas is not there.
Let's look at the Lord of the Rings trilogy again. If you're successful the first time, you kind of want to, get inspiration from the first successful trilogy. The first movie, Fellowship of the Ring, Merry and Pippin. They're fun. They do a lot of crazy stuff, and they don't necessarily need to shine. But in the second movie, you start to see their quality. When he leads the Ents to war, and then in that third movie, their individual characters pay off. With their heroics. But in the first Fellowship of the Ring is meant to show how wild and crazy they are.
Yes.
And that way you have this nice little story, this nice little character arc of people that aren't even interested in becoming heroes, and by the decisions and choices they make, they eventually become heroes. And I think that Fili and Kili are not set up for success.
Teteres is making an excellent point. There are some spoilers here that I don't want to go into because Justin hasn't read the book, and he does not know the ultimate fate of all these characters.
And everyone, people spoil it on our Facebook all day
because the book is 75 years old.
I know,
bloody hell.
I know. So we don't necessarily. So we just want to bring people up to speed.
Okay.
Well, the purpose of these profiles here we're doing is to bring people up to speed on who these characters are
and what parts they play in the story.
And what parts they play, and why the decision was to cast who they cast.
All right.
And I think Dino Gorman, based on their casting of Dino Gorman and how funny he is, you have personal knowledge how wonderfully funny he is.
He has great comedic talent. Yes, he does.
I think because of that casting,
and he can sing.
I think because of that casting of Dino Gorman and Fili role, and Fili is the leader of the pair, that character was supposed to be more intentionally humorous than comes across.
Well, I thought that most of the humor was going to be coming from Bombur. I really did. I thought in the first movie, before I saw it, Bombur was going to get all the pratfalls and all the obese jokes and all the funny bits. I thought Bombur was going to get the lion's share of funny bits. He doesn't, really. He doesn't. Fili and
There's no jokes in the movie.
Fili and Kili get what little humor that there is. Most of the humor belongs to Martin Freeman. Martin Freeman is incredibly funny. He's befuddled. He's driven a little bit crazy by the crazy entrance of these dwarves.
You know, one of my
guys, thank you.
They're rehearsing all day.
I know, huh?
So,
but
one of my big problems with The Hobbit and an Unexpected Journey is that there were a lot of opportunities and setups for explicit humor, and they never went down that path. Merry and Pippin exist in Fellowship purely for laughs. You know, they explode in their face and suddenly they're full of charcoal. I mean, that's a joke as old as Chaplin.
Yeah. A joke as old as Chaplin.
And
they play it well.
And they play, stealing the fruits in the thing, and then pushing falling down a cliff. I mean, it's they have Chaplin written all over them.
And the cabbages we nicked last week. Yeah.
Right, and then tumbling down the
yes,
yes. So everything, and all they want is food. Like, they were explicitly funny. They were meant to be funny. It wasn't like you weren't supposed to see the humor in it. You could see the humor in it. Anybody could. Anyone can laugh at it because they were classic jokes. I feel like Fili and Kili were set up, and Bombur were set up for the obvious joke. And some people will say, yes, but the obvious joke is obvious and it's not funny. No, the obvious joke is funny because we laughed at it in Fellowship of the Ring. And they didn't do it in... The opportunity was there, and Fili and Kili fell short, and Bombur fell short. And I feel like that was an editorial decision, and I hope that the footage exists for the extended editions you see more of their funniness. You know, like their first words are "at your service." Like I'm already as soon as they open their mouths, I'm like, all right, these guys are going to be fun. They're not fun.
Really?
They're not fun. They tell a story. They tell a dramatic story about the Battle of Azkaban, and they don't even they're not even having.
It's not Azkaban. That's frickin' Harry Potter. What are you doing? Oh my God!
They're telling the story.
Azanulbazar, not Azkaban. Oh my God! All right, listen to me. Listen to me and listen good, Mr. Justin Sewell. I'm gonna tell you. Okay. Of 13 dwarves that are introduced to us in this movie, we get up close and personal with maybe 4. Keep in mind that Stephen Hunter, as Bombur, doesn't even talk. Right. We get a lot of Thorin. We have to invest in his story. We get a lot of Balin, lots of Balin. He stands out very well. He creates a kind of grandfather-son relationship with Thorin,
right?
Even though they're not related like that. And we get Fili and Kili. To a lesser degree, we get a couple of little bits from Bofur. Yeah. Bofur plays the joke on Bilbo, talking about how big the dragon is to make him pass out. But he also has a tender moment. Bofer, I believe,
Yeah.
who is it? And I hope that I'm not getting this wrong. Okay,
It's Bofer.
But Bofer is talking to Bilbo when Bilbo's trying to escape and leave the Misty Mountains right after the Stone Giants sequence and go back to Rivendell, and he says, "I wish you luck, all the luck in the world. I really do." And Bilbo and Bofer have this kind of touching moment. We get close to 4 out of the 13 dwarves.
I know, and that's
Just
what I'm
be
saying.
patient for the next 2 films.
No.
Where be patient, find your zen, breathe, and find your zen, Mr. Justin.
Okay.
Because in the next 2 films, we've got more dwarves to explore all these other character
I
lines.
know, and new characters. You have all the humans coming in.
And the elves.
And the elves.
Yes,
That's what
we
I'm
do.
saying.
Yes, we do.
The unexpected journey was supposed to be the thing for Kili and Fili, and I'm saying that Merry and Pippin were set up wonderfully in Fellowship. And then remember Two Towers theatrical edition?
Yes.
What does Merry and Pippin do? Not much, other than you have to go to Isengard. The only thing they actually do of significance is
A little Lou Reed for everybody tonight.
they convince Treebeard to take a detour. They don't do anything else.
You think that's insignificant? The fact
That's significant. No, that's significant.
it's
But
majorly significant
I
that
know.
Merry and Pippin are there where they are to be a catalyst for change.
But it's basically
the story.
it's basically one scene, but we had so many more new characters in Two Towers. I'm saying the same thing is going to happen in this in the Hobbit trilogy. Is that you've got so many other storylines, so many other characters to happen, that this was the time for Fili and Kili to shine. They hired the right actors. They hired Dean O'Gorman, Aidan Turner, the right actors, who are naturally funny, and it's not funny anything they do.
Take a walk on the wild side with Fili and Kili. Do you know what? If any of the dwarves in the company of dwarves were going to take a walk on the wild side, it would be Fili and Kili. You know they would.
Some
I
bass
thought-
lines are just intoxicating, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I'm a big Lou Reed fan.
The question is, what dwarf would listen to Lou Reed?
Bofer. Bofer has the best singing voice. We're pretty sure that, Bofer has the best singing
And in
voice.
fact,
don't you
this
think?
is not Lou Reed. This is a cover of Lou Reed. A cover of a cover of Lou Reed. I believe it was...
Cover of a cover? They're not singing the original?
No, Can I Kick It was by Arrested. Who sang Can I Kick It?
I don't know, but
It was early 90s.
can I kick it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone in the chat room is probably going to tell us in a minute.
Okay.
Well, here's what we're doing.
Do you guys agree with me? I feel like Fili and Kili weren't explicitly funny, and they should have been.
But there's the most of the funny comes from Bilbo being uncomfortable. In the book,
I know.
In the book and in the movie, they got that exactly right. And I'll give my tip of the hat to the filmmakers that.
And I feel like they wanted Fili and Kili to be funny,
and
they weren't.
But Fili and Kili greatly contribute to Bilbo's feeling of discomfort by telling him stories about orcs stabbing him in the middle of the night and sending him off to investigate trolls when he doesn't want to go. I think Fili and Kili contribute to the greater pattern of what is supposed to be funny, and that is Bilbo's fish out of water. It's a great formula, and it's a formula as old as Charlie Chaplin. The fish out of water story, that's Bilbo. That's what Tolkien always thought was funny, was that this rustic little busybody, rural Englishman staying at home in his gardens and in his hobbit hole,
Right.
all of a sudden gets pushed out the door with these sweaty, burly, bearded dwarves. In the case of Aidan Turner, he's not even bearded.
Overall, yes, of course. It's just like Sam.
That's why it
just like
works.
Sam.
For me, that's
Sam,
why it works.
Sam the Gardener. We're not talking about the hobbits being funny. We're talking about these two characters. They were just totally set up. I want to like them more. That's all. I want to like them more. I want to like them. beyond being hot dwarves, I want to like them more. I feel like they were set up because of the whole hot dwarves thing and their focus in all the marketing campaign. That they were set up to be greater and be more significant in this movie, and they weren't.
When you're cramming 13 or 14 characters...
you had that many characters in the Fellowship.
Add Gandalf. He was a 14th character.
You had that many characters in the Fellowship.
But they were not front-loaded. No, you did in the Fellowship of the Ring, you did not have 14 lead characters front-loaded in the opening hour of the film. It didn't happen quite like that.
Yes. Do I want Kili and Fili to hit each other like the Three Stooges? Yes. I want explicit humor. They're the only ones that are set up to do that. He's got funny actors and funny scenes and funny writing and funny setups to be that character, and he's not.
Perhaps
they don't allow that to happen.
I think that the analogy to Merry and Pippin might be something that you're too strict with right now. And maybe you're adhering a little too closely to it. As one of our chatters just pointed out in the room, hobbits are a different race than dwarves. Dwarves were never meant to have a frivolous air. Tolkien never ever represented them as being
But they have to. They're the character. It's not frivolous. It's not frivolous.
Frivolity. The source of humor. You're talking about frivolity, aren't you?
I'm not. It's not. It's just classic. It's just classic humor.
Woo! And then somebody handed me a tambourine. Woo! Yeah. Oh shit. Okay. Anyway, I love it. Somebody better hand me a tambourine because I need one right now. I need one right now.
Is my point of view really unique? Like I'm trying to find a lot of people. Here's one of the things about this series of like profiling the dwarfs. Like, what was Tolkien's intent? What was Jackson's intent? And what was the actor's intent? And did it work? And overall, even though everyone loves The Hobbit, I think people love The Hobbit because it's The Hobbit and it's the start of something great. But it wasn't. When people ask you what is your favorite Lord of the Rings movie out of the trilogy, half the people will say Fellowship.
More than 3/4 of the fans I know say Two Towers. Extended edition is their favorite of the trilogy. A lot of people say Fellowship, and I don't think anyone's going to say that about Unexpected Journey. This is over. I think the movie doesn't live up. You almost said that word. Doesn't live up. Doesn't live up. Doesn't live up to a book you haven't read.
To the promise. To the promise of the film.
The promise of the first film trilogy?
Yeah.
Well, let's just say,
if you're gonna get the whole team back together,
R2 and 3PO weren't frivolous, yet they were the comic relief. Excellent point, Jenny.
And they did a lot of this. Whoop whoop. But bop you on the head and poke your eyes out.
Fili and Kili are not the Laurel and Hardy of Middle Earth.
They should be.
Merry and Pippin are, but Fili and Kili are not.
They need to.
And I don't see why you insist that they should be. I don't see why.
Because the movies need that.
Because they're the youngest?
No.
Because they're the youngest?
Okay. No. No. Okay.
82 and 77 years old. These dwarves are 82 and 77 years old.
You never mention that in the movie.
And one of them is the heir of Durin's line, the throne of Erebor.
They don't mention. Here's what I'm saying is that a successful trilogy needs that comic relief. Do you agree? Just like you just said, Star Wars has R2 and 3PO comic relief throughout the series.
Well, I thought an unexpected Journey gets oodles of comic relief from the trolls and from the goblins.
They're dead in a scene.
And from Bilbo.
The goblins are not funny at all.
You don't think that little goblin scribe is funny? People love him.
He's the smallest goblin, and he's got a throwaway scene. Yeah.
You don't think Barry Humphries delivers some kind of comedy? He's singing a torture song, and he's running around.
I think the elements are. I think that Goblin Town's a whole another discussion. I think the Goblin Town was more of a tribute to the animated film and pleasing hardcore fans than it was a genuine attempt at a great scene. I think it was more tribute more attempt to pay tribute than not.
Neil has a good point. Neil, Rider Moon, has said right here that... Hold on, where is it? He says, you can't compare the Hobbit films to the Lord of the Rings films.
Absolutely can.
Such a massive difference on so many levels.
I know, and it doesn't have to be because they brought the whole team back together. Such a massive difference on so many levels, but he can make it similar. And separate from all that, every great trilogy needs the comic relief pairs. C-3PO, R2, you have, and then Merry and Pippin in Lord of the Rings, and I'm sure there's a few others that if I thought about it will come to me. And
you've got the two pirates in the Pirates movies who were the comic relief pirates.
Right?
The one with the wooden eye.
The tall, the one with the eye and stuff like that.
And the slender one and the little stout one.
So of all the characters that are constant through this trilogy, of all the characters that are constant through the Hobbit trilogy, what characters are set up to be that comic relief? And I'm saying Fili and Kili were set up, and they don't deliver.
Jenny, I agree with your husband. Thank you, Jenny Archo. Thank you, Jenny's husband. I agree with Jenny's husband, and I hope you can hear this in the other room, even though you are thousands of miles away. That's the magic of the interwebs. I appreciate that. You know what? Look, the writers, Fran Walsh has said in the press, she has said, we always pictured The Hobbit as more of a... I am having a hard time competing with this, but someone's going to play a riff and I'm going to start singing myself right now. Carry on, as if nothing really matters. Anyway, if you guys haven't heard the David Bowie album, The Next Day, get it. Buy it. It's genius. The man is genius. Anyways.
That's not Bowie, that's Queen.
I know, but they performed together.
Oh my god, talk about a random link.
I know that was Queen, but I'm thinking about Bowie right now. Anyways.
That was Wayne's World.
I'm expecting Bowie to come out of the downstairs anyway. Wayne and Garth, blonde and brunette. Let me tell you something.
Fili, blonde and brunette. Yeah, see, it's just kidding.
Fran Walsh has said that they always pictured The Hobbit as a story to be a more golden-hued fairy tale. It is not high epic fantasy. It's a golden, colored fantasy fairy tale. It has a different approach, a different flavor, and I think I approve of the light touch that Peter did in An Unexpected Journey. I really do like the sense of humor that comes from a endlessly frustrated Martin Freeman. I think that's very funny.
Of course, he's going to be funny, but he's not the comic relief.
It is not.
Bilbo is not supposed to be the comic relief.
I don't think there's any built-in failure of the script that Kili and Fili were not more funny. They were funny enough without taking away Bilbo's thunder. He's the funny.
No.
Bilbo is the funny.
Is he supposed to be the funny?
Yes. The whole story is supposed to be about Bilbo being taken out of his comfort zone and into a great wide adventure. That's what's funny about it.
Here's the great thing about Merry and Pippin is that they start out funny, and at Return of the King, they fulfill their duties. They end up dramatic characters, don't they? They have a nice little character arc. Merry and Pippin do.
Yes, Merry and Pippin do.
And Fili and Kili can have that.
And they will.
I know they're royalty.
And they will.
I know they're royalty now. But I think their character arc would be even stronger if they had this kind of like they're the young kids, they're the punk kids of the company of dwarves. They're the young punks, and then
thank you.
At the end of the day, they deliver on their heroism. They have a nice, and I just feel like it wasn't.
I don't know. I think Kili and Fili provide a lot of inspiration for a lot of fans. Our very own sisters, Alex and Kelly, have done their Happy Hobbit videos for the OneRing.net, and they've taken on the pseudonyms of Kili and Fili. Kili and Fili have inspired fans for 75 years, even though Tolkien himself barely sketches out these characters in the book. But now that we get to see more of them and see what the actors are doing with these roles in the movies, I think it's fascinating, and it's much more interesting. And I hope that we get to see more of the stories developed in the second and third film. In the first film, we got the seeds, just the seeds, the beginnings of these characters. I really hope that Stephen Hunter will talk in the future movies, and I really hope that we get some more grit under the nails of what's going on with these interpersonal relationships between the dwarves and themselves and Bilbo.
It's not
and I'm
apples
sure that we
and
will
oranges.
see. I'm sure we will see more of this.
I'm sorry, guys. It's not. It is. It's not apples and oranges. It's oranges and oranges. Like, you get the whole team back together to recreate
You're welcome, Kelly.
epic films. You have to take what's successful. And obviously, they were trying to take what's successful. That's why you can tell that the particular the scenes that they gave Fili and Kili that Tolkien had not assigned to those characters.
Yeah.
That they gave to Kili and Fili in an effort to show some humor. You know, to be like the punk kids. Like, hey, go check out that horse over there.
I mean,
like it's set up, but it wasn't executed. And I think Dino Gorman was a perfect casting for the character that they want. But I think the editing, I think the fault is the editing.
I don't know. Kili and Fili walk into Bag End and start wiping their muddy boots on Bilbo's priceless furniture, and the comedy is not from one of the dwarves wiping his mud on the furniture. The comedy is from Bilbo's reaction to that. And it's funny. Martin Freeman is funny. And you know, who breaks out in song? Who begins, blunt the knives, burn the forks, smash the bottles and burn the corks? It starts with Fili and Kili. They do have a little bit of that Merry and Pippin spark that you're talking about. But I'm glad they're not carbon copies. I don't want them to be carbon copies of the way the Hobbits were in the previous trilogy. That kind of redundancy is something that Peter Jackson has been criticized enough in having in these films.
I think redundancy is valuable. So
okay.
You know, one of the reasons that as compared to episode 1, we had a lot of back history to work with Balin and Dwalin. There was a lot to discuss, and they were in a lot of scenes in the book and the movie that we can reflect on. Fili and Kili, much smaller characters, even smaller in Tolkien's writings. Very, very minute characters.
There's barely a breath of description about some of these dwarves, and they're just part of the story.
So what we have here is Fili and Kili. They basically got promoted by Peter Jackson. They were given a couple scenes that other dwarves had handled. They were given a couple scenes. I think he cast based on their potential for humor, and you know, I'm hoping to see some fun stuff. But
you guys have been providing some amazing feedback, and I want to give acknowledgement to the audience, as does Justin. We both acknowledge you guys. This has been a really dynamic conversation, and I've been following very clearly what you guys are saying.
Yes.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that.
So,
I do appreciate that.
Well, that's kind of the backstory. That's the backstory of Kili and Fili, and
Fili is supposed to be 5 years older than Kili, and therefore he's the next in line to inherit the throne of Erebor and be king under the mountain after Thorin. But I'm not going to spoil any more details about who lives and who dies, because we're going to find out when the third film comes out.
In the third film, you think that's going to wait till the third film? Yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
And I really greatly enjoy this type of conversation. It's really very cool.
So we're gonna keep doing these profiles of the dwarves, because we there's a lot of dwarves.
Yeah, Jenny's right. Dwalin is funny too, but mostly it's Bilbo's reaction to Dwalin, which is funny.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, come on.
You know. Okay. So you know what? Frodo was not meant to be the funny character in Lord of the Rings, and what you're telling me is Bilbo is meant to be the funny character. Continuously, we will have lots of humor from Martin Freeman. That's why he was cast. Okay,
that's where we're going with this.
I feel like I came in because I hadn't read The Hobbit. I came into an unexpected journey based on what the filmmakers and the marketing wants me to know and see, and based solely on the pre-release marketing and all the posters and the magazine articles and who were the celebrities that were always interviewed. It was Dino Gorman and Aidan Turner everywhere. Yeah. Teen Beat, everything like that. And then going into the movie completely cold, I feel like Fili and Kili at your service. I was prepared for more. I was prepared for funny.
You were prepared for more, but you know what? If you look for the funny
Just like
the wrong places, you're gonna find the funny in other places. You're gonna find it.
Okay, that's a good comparison right there.
What's that?
Did Radagast live up to your expectations of funny?
I never ever thought that Radagast was going to be such a doofus character. I never ever depicted him as that. The fact that Sylvester McCoy and the design team at Weta gave us a very, very different Radagast, who was childlike and it seemed to be trapped
I've never
in his
smoked
own.
weed before.
You know, Radagast seemed to be not really connected.
Aloof.
Not so much directly connected to Middle Earth, or the people and their politics. He was only connected to the birds and animals, and therefore seemed to be almost separated, as if he was through the looking glass. Radagast seemed to be in a totally different world by himself.
You were one of the first people in the world to see Radagast.
Yes,
and
I was.
You saw the bunny sled scene,
and I loved it.
And
I thought the bunny sled was a great innovation.
So based on that, and so you were really hyped about Radagast.
Yeah.
And did the final movie live up to what you were expecting, or was it just a little different? Radagast's role was just different.
Radagast was way, way different but I liked it instantly because this Radagast was innocent of the evils and the politics of the world. He was very sequestered by himself in Roscobel. He was taking care of his animals and his plants and his birds and friends. He didn't give two shits about anybody else in Middle Earth. And that innocence, that constant naivete, was very charming and very interesting choice. But I never read it in the books that way.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that because you were one of the first to get hype about Radagast.
Yeah.
He was different than you were expecting. I'm saying, based on what was presented to me for Fili and Kili, it was different than I was expecting. So.
Thank you, Ara Galen. Thank you, Ara Galen. I do appreciate that you checked on that soundtrack, and I was wondering about that too. But anyways,
yes, we'll do this again at the end of movie 3.
Yes, we will.
I think we should go out on this.
Men at work. We're going down under.
Brussels.
And had a trail that full of thunder.
All right. Well,
I met a strange lady.
She made me nervous.
Something
made me breakfast.
She took me in and gave me breakfast. And second breakfast.
And third, yes.
And third breakfast. Anyways, you guys are a great audience. And as always, we love having you on the show. Thank you for coming to Torrent Tuesday.
And if you want to watch this live, Justin.tv is going to be streaming Justin Willman's Sleight of Mouth with Kevin Smith and all this great music that you're hearing will be live right after this show, 7:30.
That's right, 7:30. So stay tuned.
So stay tuned on Justin.tv. It's a different website, Justin.tv.
It's a different Justin.
And
Justin.tv is a totally different, unrelated thing. But worth watching.
Justin is producing Justin's show on Justin TV. So it's very full of Justins. So until next week, we'll have 2 more dwarves. We haven't decided which ones we're gonna do.
We're gonna do Dory, Nori, and Ori.
All right. So,
I believe they're all brothers. I think they're all related.
Well, we'll find out next week, won't we?
Yes, we will. Well, I think I'm gonna start my research right now.
All right.
For next week's show. Hey guys, if you want to watch the archive of our show, you can find it on our YouTube channel, and it's unusually spelled. I want to mention this real quick. You go to youtube.com/the1ring, and it's THE numerical 1NE, as if the number 1 had replaced the O. So THE number 1NERING. Right? So look for that on the YouTube channel, and you can see the archive of many of our Torn Tuesdays.
Yes.
Even the good old days back on Stickcam.
We love it.
But thank you, YouTube, for the beta test, and thank you, Meltdown, for hosting us.
Always, and we'll catch you next week with more History of Dwarves Volume 3.
And thank you, Ray Harryhausen, for all the dreams.
Yes.
Thank you for all the dreams, Ray.
He was so good.
He was the best.
Thank
you. Bye-bye, guys. Good
Bye.
night.